For the 26-year-old resident of this Railway Street home at Merriweather, the knock on his door just after 1 this afternoon was anything but a friendly house call. Police say when he answered, he was confronted by a man clutching a handgun. What took place next is still unclear.
And from there, a struggle took place after the men demanded to come into the premises, and consequently the resident was shot in the hand.
According to witness reports, a four-wheel drive was seen leaving the area shortly after the incident. The injured man was treated at the scene for hand injuries and has been admitted to hospital overnight for observation. Today's incident is the third in the last 2 days in which handguns have been involved. Police are now investigating links between two recent robberies in the area and today's shooting.
Yes, we certainly are, but at this stage there's nothing to link them as far as we're concerned.
Police will now look into a robbery at the Newcastle City Council Credit Union yesterday where a pistol was used to threaten staff. It follows a similar hold-up which took place at the Merriweather branch of the mobile service station in nearby Patrick Street on Sunday night. Helen Kapelos, NBN News. Digging in above the ground today, striking workers from BHP's Wollongong coal mine. Their stoush with the big Australians sparked by a cut-price coal deal with Japan.
Well, what BHP has done is said, we'll have that market share, we don't care if the price goes down, and we don't care if other producers go out backwards, we don't care if we have to retrench some more jobs.
BHP broke ranks with a block of companies negotiating with Japanese steel mills to accept a 5% price cut in coking coal in return for a massive share of the market.
Well, they've operated strategically and individually to gain further market share, and the rest of the industry will suffer. There'll be further job losses as a result.
This latest deal comes off the back of BHP's decision to accept an 18% price cut for coking coal last year. It reflects the corporate giant's policy to offload what it can by adopting a sell more for less strategy.
But there is a world oversupply of coal, and if we don't remain competitive, we can't stay in the game.
Australian coal exports have jumped 30% to 170 million tonnes in the past decade, but the export receipts have barely risen, a trend that looks set to continue.
Well, I think what we'll see is the consumers of Australian coal, which mainly the Japanese power utilities and steel mills, ask for further reductions. That'll cause management of Australian coal companies to turn to Labor and say, look, we need more from you, and in fact they'll have to cut their labour costs.
Despite an Industrial Relations Commission order to return to work, the miners have voted to extend their stoppage for another 24 hours. Vanessa Spark, NBN News.
There was little disruption to TAFE classes throughout the Hunter and Central Coast today, despite 200 of the Institute's 900 teachers attending a protest rally in Newcastle. They're asking the state government to put pressure on the Commonwealth to reinstate millions of dollars slashed from the federal vocational training budget.
Primarily through funding cuts from the federal government that are being handed down to state government and then passed on to the TAFE institutes, and reducing that funding has made it necessary to remove those teachers from their teaching positions.
More than 70 jobs, mostly teaching positions, have been shed through voluntary redundancies from TAFE in the Hunter and Central Coast. The Teachers Federation claims the quality of education is suffering.
It's about increasing class sizes, about compressing courses or not putting as many hours into a course that is required. It affects quality.
Not so, according to Hunter TAFE.
The achievements of our staff and our students confirm that the quality of what we're doing, the outcomes for students just get better every year.
Today's meeting voted for strike action and overtime bans unless this year's slashed funding is restored. Paul Lobb, NBN News. The
John Hunter Hospital has one of the state's, if not country's, busiest trauma units, a fact that wasn't lost on 6 surgeons today who say impending budget cuts force them to take the drastic action of tendering their resignation effective in mid-March.
We've decided to lay our careers on the lines because we feel very strongly that the continued disruption to satisfactory, adequate services to the Hunter community, this has been severely jeopardised, and we see no way out of the current cycle.
That cycle will see them forced to accept a 45% cut in elective surgery over the next 6 months, with emergency, semi-urgent and cancer surgery becoming a priority. But Hunter Health says the dilemma isn't confined to just one group of clinicians. A blowout in workers' compensation insurance premiums last year saw $20 million slashed from their budget.
Clinicians don't worry about budgets. They don't worry about, if they're a surgeon, they don't worry about the needs of mental health. They don't worry about the needs of mothers and babies. So they focus on their very small area, and they say, if I want to do a whole lot more surgery, you should just fund me.
The Australian Medical Association says that can be easily fixed.
If we can find $10 million to put into an event like an opening or closing ceremony for the Olympics, surely we can find a similar amount of money to rescue some of our public hospitals.
All that's cold comfort for the more than 1,500 patients still logged on John Hunter's surgery waiting lists. Doctors now speaking out about a crisis they claim has been dogging the health system for months.
There's been a sort of a low-level crisis for quite some time, but it's been simmering beneath the surface.
Helen Kapalos, NBN News.
The news was good today. It's put a little bit in the bucket for the people here at National Textiles, but the main thing that I can see is that it all depends on the creditors' meeting that's going to happen tomorrow.
Striding from his Canberra bunker, a PM under siege. He says he's damned if he helped 350 workers sacked by his brother's company, and damned if he didn't.
I deny that the decision amounted to favouritism, if not corruption, in the words of the Australian editorial.
He denied urging creditors to accept the deed of arrangement for the sale of National Textiles in a bid to save his brother from any real examination.
All the advice I had was that that was the best way of the workers getting their full money as quickly as possible. That's why I did it.
And he defended the limit placed on the entitlement safety net proposal put forward by Cabinet, even though there would be tens or hundreds of thousands of workers in similar situations.
If you go back to one, there's no reason why you don't go back to others, and still more. It's not as if National Textiles is the first one that we've done. I mean, we did do Oakdale.
The Australian Securities and Investment Commission will now investigate the circumstances of the company's collapse. While the Prime Minister defended himself in Canberra, the President of the ACTU went on the attack at Rutherford.
Why is National Textiles a special case and other cases haven't been treated in the same way? That's a question that the government needs to answer.
While Ms George called for a national insurance scheme to protect entitlements this morning, a National Textile Creditors meeting broke down this afternoon. The major creditor, Scottish Pacific Business Bank, has now approached the Textile Workers Union to organise a private hearing with them tomorrow.
I just wish that he would defend all Australian workers and not just defending his brother and all the other high flyers. We just want our money.
Everything was up. The mercury, crowd numbers and expectation. This was a game Newcastle couldn't afford to lose. John Bonavolia gave Andy Harper the first real chance. But when they swapped roles, there was no doubting the finish. Robbie Slater almost got the visitors level just minutes later, but Bob Catlin and Glenn Sprod proved too good. Sprod bobbed up again after half-time. This time his header helped Bonavolia poach his 10th goal of the season. But there was still so much to come. The Sydney Siders threw everything at the home team, but a slice of luck and a chunk of Catlin was enough to suck the remaining spirit dry. It was time for the subs, and what a first-up touch for Damien Smith. His pass only outdone by a perfect Robbie Andrzejewski finish. 3-0 to Newcastle and Andrzejewski's first ever top-grade goal. Shane Lyons mirrored the feat for the Spirit to get the visitors on the board. Another substitute and another first NSL goal, this time for Chris Tancheski. And that was it. Newcastle 4-1 winners.
We had Sam Mann, who was a hot favourite for the event. He's won the last two on the junior series. For this year, that is. He was actually knocked out by 0.6 this morning, so that was a bit of an upset.
The owner of Lot 15 on Point Road at Farm Cove came to own land in this beautiful area by a deceased estate. He says there's only one way to describe it.
Be paradise.
There has been no development on the property, which is more than 2,000 square metres. However, plans to build on the land have been met with protests, despite strict planning restrictions. Up for auction today, the interest was less than expected. The lot was passed in for $142,000, far short of what the owner, Laurie Scarf, was hoping for. He says that a long campaign by protesters ruined the sale without good reason.
Well, to anyone wanting to build over there, they just stay within the law, because the law is on their side, and it is a building block.
Nobbies had dominated the surfboat races all day, winning the Blue Ribbon A boat final, the women's under-21s, and coming home second place in the juniors. In the reserve final, they had two crews competing, but neither could catch Redhead. In a challenging swell that made things tough, Redhead rode home first. The two Nobbies crews duelled not far behind to share second place. The juniors then put on a show with a march past, making its mark in the sand, before the junior Iron men and women took things out to sea once more. Considered the premier event in the juniors, Cooks Hill's Rip Stewart set the pace for the others to catch, first out and off the board leg, while Swansea Belmont's Kieran Mowbray showed the form that won her the Branch Female Surf Lifesaver of the Year, heading the girls. Stewart, the eventual winner of the boys, Mowbray the girls, while Brendan Fisher was crowned Male Junior Surf Lifesaver. And it was birthday time for the Regional Athletic and Gymnastics Centre at Glendale. The multi-million-dollar facility was opened on this day last year, and while today it hosted the Macquarie Shores Club, later this year the Lithuanian and Irish track and field teams will be using the site for pre-Olympic training.
Strategy Statement 2000 Plus is the result of workshops held last year with the Chambers of Commerce in Old Bar, Wingham, Harrington, Hallidays Point and Taree. The document outlines issues unique to each of the 5 chambers, but its overall aim is to bring them together into a combined chambers group and promote the Manning Valley as a resourceful region.
They're talking about supporting existing business through professional promotion, attracting new business by working with the Manning Development Corporation. And one of the key things that came out of it was about events coordination. There are so many things that happen across the Manning Valley, but they're not coordinated.
Part of the new strategy targets tourist groups with suggestions like attracting a cruise boat back to the Manning River. It comes at a time when the Taree Chamber of Commerce is fighting for its life. Low meeting attendances and a general apathy amongst the business community have left it short on money and membership.
If we don't have the Taree Chamber to carry through those things that are unique to Taree in itself and don't have representation into the combined chamber, then Taree businesses lose their voice.
Catherine Turner, NBN News. Feeding dairy cows the right grass sounds simple enough, but in the ever-changing agricultural sector, choices are becoming more varied and complex. New South Wales Agriculture is making the job a little easier with information days across the region, bringing farmers up to date with the latest types of ryegrass and pasture. The department has been trialling relatively unknown varieties at a series of sites in the Manning Valley and Upper Hunter.
Varieties such as Marbella and Crusader, this was the first time that we've ever had these in trials, and it was just interesting to see how how they performed, how much rust that they actually developed in the spring. These varieties performed extremely well.
Resistance to the leaf disease rust, longevity and acceptance by cattle are used to assess the quality of each ryegrass, and often there's a bit of give and take involved.
Oh, some of these don't grow terribly quickly during the winter months, and probably that's a more critical time here for these people, like to get feed. But it's handy to have them that they will carry on a bit longer in the spring. So sometimes you've got to trade off a bit of winter growth to get the growth in the spring.
Catherine Turner, NBN News.
Jennifer Joan Hansen has been a neonatal nurse for 38 years. Today she faced court on 4 counts of assaulting and abusing one of her newborn charges. The charges relate to 2 incidents at the neonatal intensive care unit at Newcastle's John Hunter Hospital on the 8th and 9th of January last year. In court today it was alleged by police that another mother witnessed Miss Hansen pick up the crying baby and shove him forcefully back into a cot. On the second occasion, it was alleged in facts tendered that a doctor and a fellow nurse saw Miss Hansen shake the same baby and force him into a cot. They also alleged she said to the baby, "Shut up, I can't feed you every 2 hours." Taking the stand to refute the allegations, Miss Hansen claims she simply turned him onto his side and patted him on the back. Defence lawyer Paul Russell conceded Miss Hansen was not the most gentle of nurses. In fact, a so-called roughness could have been mistaken for brisk and confident handling. In handing down his decision, Magistrate Steve Jackson found Miss Hansen did handle the baby in a manner beyond the level of forcefulness and found her guilty on 1 count of child abuse. Other charges of child abuse and assault were dismissed. The case was adjourned until next Tuesday for a further hearing of the second assault charge. Tanya Carlisle, NBN News.
With Newcastle dumped from the top-tier club rugby union competition in the country, players like James Lawrence now look at country selection as their only source of representative rugby.
Yeah, it is definitely. I think Newcastle's probably got a good chance at Country Week this year, and obviously country would be probably the peak of any rep footy I could play this year.
Glammour Sydney club Randwick has been trying to pull David Lubins in since the Wildfires' demise. So far he's resisted, but he too will hit the park in country colours in what will be a virtual Wildfires reunion. Joining both he and Lawrence will be Doug North and former captain Stu Woodhouse, but it's 2 former teammates in the opposing side that Lubins is keen to catch up with in Tim Rapp and Jared Heaney.
It's a bit unfortunate because Jared actually knows all the line-out calls, so we're going to have to try and change something there. Tim better be careful. We'll be looking for him on the bottom of any rucks.
One-time Wildfire Nathan Croft, who's in country as well, knows what it's like to play old teammates.
Yeah, well, I'm not surprised if Timmy and Jade are lining up a few of our boys to get as well, so yeah, it should be a lot of fun.
3 Newcastle club players are also in the Cockatoo squad. However, in the main game, the Waratahs will be out many of their top players. Wallabies Matt Burke and Jason Little to be rested, while Nathan Gray and John Wellborn are both injured.
There's no doubt about it, wine is big business. $200 million a year is generated from the Colburn-based vineyards alone, and it's this mighty dollar Cessnock Council is hoping to continue to lure to the region by building a wine interpretive centre near the Cessnock Airport.
What we'd like to be able to do is give them an opportunity to understand wine and what it's all about before they actually go around the tasting circuit.
As well as housing a visitor information centre, the facility will have a cafe, the Hunter Valley Vineyards Association headquarters and exhibition space. Council has already received a state government grant of $350,000 to get the ball rolling.
Business is tough, and we're doing very well in this particular area, but we don't rest on our laurels, and we know that we've got to provide those additional attractions.
Meanwhile, Council last night approved a drug and alcohol rehabilitation centre in the old nurses' quarters of the Allendale Nursing Home.
Everyone recognises there's a need for this project in this community.
The facility, which is expected to be up and running by March next year, will provide up to 31 beds for patients.
It won't only be for this shire, it'll be for the mid-north coast and the central coast and the Maitland, Curry and Cessnock areas.
Tanya Carlisle, NBN News.
Ten pilots and more than 100 personnel geared up today for 2 weeks of exercises against New Zealand's Air Force of only 18 jets.
And we'll work up from basic fighter manoeuvres through to big package strike work where they'll be dropping high explosive weapons, and we'll be both providing the adversary and also working on their side to protect them.
And although the Top Guns will have spent 3 hours in their jets before setting foot in New Zealand, they have plenty to keep them amused. Williamtown's RAAF base has 72 jets and much more experience in combat training than New Zealand's Skyhawks. But the operation will still be of great benefit to the Australian Top Guns.
We get very used to flying against other F-18s and other Australians. It's great to fly against different pilots that are trained in a different way and aircraft with different capabilities.
3 Squadron will return to home ground on the 6th of March. Adam Harper, NBN News.
When the statistics show that 11,000 people are affected by food poisoning each day in Australia, it's not surprising that hygiene has become a priority. Wallsend's Ace of Clubs is the first in the state to be given Food Safe accreditation.
If we don't follow hygiene procedures, then our customers are not getting the best quality food, and that is very important for any business.
7 other businesses were also given accreditation in Newcastle today, proving they meet high safety and hygiene standards.
Just like our road rules, we now have got one standard for food preparation and safety.
Monitoring deliveries of food and maintaining consistent temperatures are key points to preventing bacteria growth. Basic cleanliness is also crucial.
What happens behind the scenes in the food preparation, the receival, the storage, as well as the preparation and making it look good, they all come together to promote safe food.
Several other food outlets in the Hunter are also vying for accreditation. Vanessa Spark, NBN News. It seems the Newcastle show is in for some racy action this year. Stunt rider David Russell promising to draw the crowds, along with teenage pop sensation Vanessa Amorosi. Today's launch of the program was a little more subdued, promoting the more traditional show offerings, show bags and animals included.
I guess really the thing that we're looking to do is to combine innovation with tradition, and really for us things like Vanessa Amorosi performing in concert on Sunday is part of that.
The 4-day show begins on the 2nd of March. Vanessa Spark, NBN News.
Whichever way you look at it, the government wants people to pay to fish. Licensing fishing gear, levying boat licences and taxing equipment are all possibilities. While the Minister for Fisheries is still taking submissions on the issue, he would prefer to expand inland fishing licences so they would apply to adults casting a line in saltwater as well.
We have a very responsible angling community that understand they must reinvest as long as that money is being spent in better recreational fishing, and that's what will happen.
The money will be used to buy out commercial fishermen in areas where stocks are severely depleted and to help fund aquaculture. It's part of a program which is likely to see commercial fishing banned in Lake Macquarie. But the reaction amongst anglers wasn't as positive as the Minister hoped.
Just for the average guy that just wants to go fishing, I'm really not sort of happy about paying $25.
If you can actually come fishing and catch something, well, I'd be for it if you could know that that's where the money was going to go.
While he was in Port Stephens, the Minister also announced that confiscated fishing gear would be given to the East Timor aid effort and asked for people to make their own donations to the Department of Fisheries.
New South Wales Rugby Union recently armed itself with a former Army officer as a CEO, and the new chief, Danny Harley, is proving he's no mere pen pusher, leading today's session at Singleton Army Base. After a cross-country run and a jaunt through an obstacle course, most couldn't wait for the pool session, but that's when things really heated up. Instead of hitting bags, players like Wallaby fullback Matt Burke tackled the ropes course. The record mark to complete the course is under 2 minutes, but some weren't hanging around for any accolades.
Yeah, a bit of team bonding and a little bit of problem solving for them. They get stuck in situations, and of course with the ribbing going on from the pool side, it makes a bit of a challenge for them.
Players not the only ones tested. Coach Kennedy cooled off by his charges. It was the only individual session of the day. Some made it, other Waratahs wilted, while the man they call the Lion, Tian Strauss, clawed his way around as the group came to one general consensus.
It's lucky that we play rugby and we're not defending the country, that's for sure.
The Waratahs fly out tomorrow night for South Africa, where they'll kick off their Super 12 campaign. Jim Calderon, NBN News.
Another group of sacked workers has jumped on the bandwagon. This time, former employees from Domino Mining Equipment are trying to claim entitlements they say the company owes them.
Unfortunately, the way the laws are structured, they're unlikely to receive probably 10 cents in the dollar.
Some workers, like Graham Donovan, who worked for Domino Mining Equipment for 28 years, are owed as much as $64,000.
We were actually trying our best to try and keep things happening with the company, and it just all went for nothing.
And since the business went under last year, it started up new branches under different names. Workers feel that if the company can continue to operate, it should be able to afford to pay out the $414,000 worth of entitlements owed to them.
No, it's not fair, and it's a flaw in the law, and the federal government, John Howard, Peter Ruth, stand condemned. The laws need to be changed. And it's totally unacceptable to the community and the trade union movement that employers can exploit workers, rip their entitlements off and still keep trading.
Adam Harper, NBN News. It's a dirty job, but someone has to do it. And this time around, it's a job which has been left to various Central Coast community groups.
We've got SES involved, Rural Fire Brigade and the local four-wheel drive clubs, and we're trying to do our best to clean up this huge site.
The dumping has been going on for years, judging by the state of some of the rubbish being dragged out, sometimes needing heavy vehicles to cope with the load. And it's easy to see why some people choose to leave their rubbish there.
It's a lovely bushland site, it's a little bit out of the way, there's a main road going past, so people feel they can duck in, dump it and leave without being seen.
But even if it is convenient, it's illegal, and dumpers face a minimum of $750 or a possible fine of $250,000. And with the sites regularly patrolled by rangers, it's only a matter of time until the culprits are caught. Adam Harper, NBN News.